Welcome everyone to the Michigan Historic Preservation Network September webinar. My name is Xiaohan Smith. I am your moderator today. We are going to learn about the renovation of the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. Before I turn it over to our speaker, I would like to go over some Zoom items. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them. All the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, please also type them into the Q&A box. The chat box will be used to share resources and links discussed during the webinar. Both the Q&A and chat boxes are located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see them, please wiggle your mouse. They should pop up. If this is your first time attending our webinar, we are the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We support the sustainability and economic viability of Michigan's historic places through advocacy, education, and direct action. We could not do the work we do without our members and volunteers. So if you're not a member yet, please consider joining us at www.mhpn.org. Here are a couple of announcements. Our call for abstracts portal will be closed this Sunday, September 21st. This is for our 2026 conference in Grosse Pointe Shores in Michigan in May. And our fall benefit registration will also be closed this Sunday. And our fall benefit this year will be in Grand Rapids on October 4th. If you're interested in those events, please check our website. I will also send those links in the chat in a moment. And if you are seeking AICP continuing education credits, you will need to log your credits using this link after this event. And this information is in the chat box. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you're seeking AIA credits, you will need to email me your name and AIA number. My email is also in the chat box. If you have any questions, you could type them into the Q&A and I will respond. Our webinars are supported in part by an award from the Michigan Arts and Culture Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. We want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. And it is my great pleasure today to introduce you our speaker, Kenneth Crutcher. Kenneth is a principal architect of Lot 3 Metz Crutcher Architects, and his bio can be found on our website, and I have also sent it to the chat. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Kenneth.
Thank you. I'm gonna flip my screen on here. There we go. Is it on? All right. So thank you again. My name is Kenneth Crutcher. I'm a principal with one of the partners at Lot 3 Metz Crutcher Architects. Here today to talk to you about the project we did, the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. Okay, let's advance. So I know there's some learning objectives we're supposed to cover. We'll try to address these during the presentation. These are the items we're trying to incorporate. So a little bit of background. The African American Cultural History Museum of Washtenaw County was operating as a virtual museum since 1993. They were moved into a building in north side of Ann Arbor until recently, where they purchased this building, which is a farmhouse in Pittsfield Township, which is just to the west of Ann Arbor, just across the border. it's called the Bird Center. It was donated or purchased from an architect who was had renovated the house or had kept the house up, and his wife had made it available to the museum for purchase. Uh, the project team for this was the museum and their very cooperative and involved board, building committee members, and have a very active board membership. Our firm and the Adapco Construction Group was a contractor who was very helpful in getting a lot of this done here. The site here, it's in Pittsfield Township. It was a farmhouse site, and weren't sure of the history of what was actually how big the original parcel was, but it was from here, Laurel Road on the south, extended up to where 94 runs now, and between this multifamily development here and here was the original piece of property. It was divided at some point to allow for a church to be developed on the property, and then also for another single family house to be built adjacent. And the property shares the driveway with the house. Here's our site, which is basically from the road to the tree line. It was existing house with minimal parking available. Like I said, it was a house with a barn. So as part of the development and turning this what was a 1824 farmhouse into this museum, we had one of the first things we had to address was how we were going to deal with the parking. And in order for this to work as a museum, we needed I forget the number, I think it was 30 or 40 parking spaces. And the only way we could get that was by having a parking agreement with the church, which they were kind enough to eventually grant the museum, which allowed us to meet all the site plan requirements then, along with having to add a fire lane for fire trucks to be able to get up to the building. So here is the existing plan of the house. The goal was to try to turn this into a museum space. We were required by the Historic Commission in the area to maintain the exterior of the building, so we couldn't make any changes to any of the exterior windows, siding, or roof line of the building. So any work had to be done on the interior. And seeing as it was built in 1824, we were trying to minimize any modifications we made to the building and to the structure. So what's shown in red with a few things that we were demolishing in the building. One of the things, there was an exterior ramp, which the Historic Commission never liked or approved of. So we had to get that removed, but that was the barrier-free access into the building. And then we were to repurpose all the interior spaces for galleries. One thing we found during looking at some of the history of the building was it was a farmhouse that had like 3 bedrooms, but we found out it was built in phases. So there was a central piece that was built first, and that would have been 1824. The subsequent additions were added at some point, and I do believe they were all done soon after the original house. The phase 1 would have been this original house here. Phase 2, the bathroom was added. Phase 3, this wing with the dining room and kitchen and a second floor was added. And then we're not clear exactly, but either 4 or 5 were built soon after, with access to the basement being through this cellar door. So our plan, we were to provide new access to the building. We opened the kitchen, what was the kitchen and the dining room, into a gallery space. We replaced what was a toilet room and turned that into a break area with a kitchen with a sink for beverages and refreshments during gallery events. We provided a new deck and ramp system to provide barrier-free access and to provide some outdoor seating space so they can do outdoor programming for the museum. And we also had to add new toilet rooms to the space, which we wound up adding in this existing part of the house. So as I said, this was the historic significance. This thing was built in 1824. We found what looks like the timbers were from trees that were harvested from the site. As you notice, a lot of the main structural members were timber construction and wood construction. I couldn't find my picture of it, but there's in the garage building, there's a barn garage back. You can see as they were building it, all the timbers in the project were milled down to timber, for rectangular shapes, except for one last one, which looked like they were just trying to get this thing done, and they just notched out the ends of it and left the whole log as a timber member holding up the loft in the garage. So the main thing we were trying to do with this renovation was trying to maintain the existing house as much as possible. All the original windows we were able to keep were in place. The shutters we had to replace, and a rear deck was added. As we opened up the space, we found they say the original wood framing. We had to carefully reconfigure somewhat to make an opening to allow us to meet some barrier-free requirements. So we had to do some reframing of the space. As I say, this is the window. One of the things we found in looking in doing not really restoration, but renovation, all the original windows are in the house. They're all double hung windows, but because of the different phases, there were 3 different types of windows used in the building. So they're all double hung, but they're all a little, the 3, each phase was a little different. This was one of our, ways to creatively meet our barrier-free requirements. This was about the only configuration that would work in arranging the toilet fixtures in this space. And unfortunately, that was right where the window is where our grab bars needed to be. And we couldn't move the windows or close them up. So this is our solution to make this work. One of the main things we were trying to do was maintain our access into the building. And this is the solution we came up with was to put a deck and a ramp in the back of the house. The ramp and the deck allows us to have a common space for accessibility. So the visitors are arriving, whether they have a disability or not, are able to come up onto the deck and enter the space from a common entrance, as opposed to a separate way and separate path. This was one of the things that happened. There was a cistern on the site which was collecting rainwater. I'm not sure when it was installed, but it had been there for most of the life of the house. And it happened to be in the exact spot we needed to put foundations for the ramp. So because it was collecting water, but the water wasn't being used, we removed it or broke the bottom out of it, and were able to put a ramp structure and deck structure over the top of it. One of the other challenge was maintaining the cellar door access. This is how to get into the basement. We did replace the door, but our deck was designed to open up and there's a hatch at the end of it to lift up part of the deck so that the cellar door could remain operational. So that was our approach to it being inclusive with the design was making the space accessible. And this, I think, was a key element to doing that, is getting this outdoor deck in place so that visitors, when they arrive, are able to enter via the stair or via the ramp and come to a common space, common place to enter the building equally. And it doesn't have a separate a barrier-free entrance, a separate ramp, a separate wheelchair entrance. Everybody can come through the same front door. We're also able to provide the two new barrier-free toilets in the space. So here's another view of what the deck winds up looking like. It will allow them to have outdoor activities here. They can do either meetings or presentations out on the outside space for the museum, and they also use the front yard as well. So we did have, I said there was a lot of collaboration in the project. The museum board members and the building committee were very active, and we did have meetings with them to get the sense of how they wanted to use the space, so we can incorporate that into how we plan to try to minimize the changes we did to the building to suit their needs. So this, I'll see if this works. But so you can walk through the space. Do a little tour. So we are entering the space. So this is the entrance, the patio space. So there were no shutters on these back windows, but that's as you can see, this is an addition. That was one of the things we found as you walk in the space. One thing that we didn't notice until into the construction of the project. If you notice, there's a chimney here. Well, that doesn't go down into the space. It's literally floating up in the structure. So you come inside, there is no chimney. It's right about here. But this is where we enter into our lobby. Move forward. And as we enter into the gallery, this is a space. We had to widen this door to accommodate our new code requirements. Trying to step in. There's the director of the museum. So this is the space that was combined. This was the kitchen, and we took the wall down between the kitchen and the dining room to turn it into one large gallery. And with that transition, we were able to maintain the brick that was the chimney. There was a wood burning stove there, and we were able to keep that as an element. I'll walk into the main gallery space. So this was used for presentations as well as for display of exhibits. Walk around. You see the back of my head. This is the space that we turned into the break area. So this was a toilet room which we opened up. A little lag here. And this space opens into, which was this was being used for David Byrd's office. The bookcase was original. Some of the books, so there it is. Yeah. There's a rendering that was done years ago of the house. This was a wood burning stove, a fireplace for a wood burning stove, which we removed to make the better use of the room. No. Come on, there we go. Okay. Get a little lag in here for this thing. Okay, so here let's go upstairs. So this is the one, I guess the first or second addition to the house, these stairs, and getting us up to the second floor. So in this space, these were 2 bedrooms, which we were able to open up for use as a gallery. This is the chimney that's coming up from the kitchen. It was buried in the wall, and now we have a much larger gallery room. This was the stair that was, like I say, was added. We found some of the difference in height was because of the way the house was added on, that this lower level was the original house and this was addition. So when that second floor was added, this, oops, I'm going too fast. This bathroom was added and we just refinished it, restored it to working condition. As you go in there, as part of the restoration, this is where the tub was located, and it's still there. It's just contained in a cabinet. And this is attic was converted to an office. And so this is over where that break room is, and this is the chimney for the fireplace. It's in the living room, the main gallery space now. So that's a quick tour of the house. So I think the outcome, we were pleased with how it turned out, and I think one of the what worked well for this project was having a contractor who was invested in doing a good job in the project. APCO did a great job. He went above and beyond in a lot of cases to get the finishes of this place put together. A lot of the detailing, just the skill of his carpenters to put stuff together and match and restore some of the finishes and details in the building. We were just really pleased with what he was able to do. I think one of the other lessons we learned was looking at the decision of whether we repair something or replace something. One of the things we found in the shutters that were still existing, the original shutters were on site. They were still in place, but they were deteriorated. And we found that it was going to be far easier to replace them than it would be to try to take them apart and restore them. So that was something where all of the shutters, they're the same size and same look and appearance, but they're all brand new on the exterior. And there was a few other things that it was easier to just replace than to try to repair in doing this kind of renovation. And the biggest lesson, I think, was being creative and flexible with how we solve some of the problems that arose as we start trying to massage a 200-year-old building into a new use. Um, a lot of the details were kind of worked out in place in the field and as we went along. Um, with that, I don't know if there are any questions or discussion. You can open up.
Hey, thank you so much for the presentation and the tour. Yeah, we do have quite a few questions, and I will just go through them one by one. Okay, the first question. Did you find out the home was built in phases by physical evidence, or did you have photos, tax records, or plat maps, something like that, or both?
Observation and story from what was handed down to how the house was developed. We didn't have any documentation of it, but just looking at, and it was kind of really apparent in the basement of the structure. You can, and actually also in the windows, you could see the different phases of construction. And it was pretty evident that the same carpenter didn't do the whole house.
Hey, thank you. Next question. In terms of public access to the property, it is great, but do you find that it also allows the public to just zip by on their way to somewhere else?
Um, well, no, the site where it's sited, as you come down the road, it's an old farmhouse at the top of a hill on the road, and there's all these apartment buildings around it. So yeah, suppose it's set back away from the road, but it is so different from everything around it, it does kind of stand out. And I know there's a couple other of these farmhouses of the same era that have been restored in the Pittsfield Township area. So I know we weren't the first one. I think it's maybe the second or third one that's been restored.
Okay, next question. So seeing this is a very old house, could you touch upon like any older building techniques that you noticed or surprises that you had to address?
Surprises, surprises. Um, the timber framing, the combination of wood stud framing and timber framing, just the way that was done. The floors are supported with, and I think this was one of my slides. They had some heavy timber floored, I guess, beams, and then the wood floor joists framed into them. And one of the things that had happened over time is there was some settling that had occurred. So in order to satisfy the building official, we had to go in and reinforce a lot of the joist to beam connections with I think we use Simpson ties, metal ties, and additional nailing to get things together. Like I
Hey,
say, and
thank
looking in the garage, that was one of the things we discovered that, like I say, the timber had been milled, and we assume it was milled on site, not far away, and it was uh, most of them were finished, but there was one member that was in the garage in the loft. It was it was still a log. I mean, it still had the bark on it. It was just milled. The ends of it were milled enough for it to go be put in place, and that was it. And and because of the age of the structure and some of the as a deferred maintenance on it, as it were, there were some spaces in that building that the framing was just not there. It had rotted away, had fallen away, but the building had not collapsed from it, or it wasn't failing. So some of those members had to be replaced. Uh, in the main house, it was um, surprisingly no real structural failures. And they said that the other surprise was finding that chimney that was in the back addition. there was a chimney. We could see it from the outside, and we looked at the building, but you walk through the space, it was a wide open room with no fireplace. And when we opened up the ceiling, we saw that, yes, they had taken the chimney out at some point, but literally left the top going through the roof from the top of the ceiling joist up, which was a surprise to see all that brick just kind of floating up in midair.
Hey, thank you. Next question. So, did you go for a change of use? If so, what building code did you use? Existing or building?
Yes, we did go for a change of use. And it was a level 2 alteration. We did lean heavily on the existing Michigan building code for existing buildings, which allowed us to keep a lot of the existing house in place. And we met a lot of the requirements um, through exemptions in the code.
Mm.
So because because of the size of the space, the square footage, the occupancy, we have 3 exits. So the front door was not a barrier-free dimension, and we couldn't change the size of it because it was the front of the house. We couldn't change the exterior. The other 2 doors were of the correct size, and well, take that back. They were not. We did change the size of the main door, but we kept the same appearance.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Next question. Will you please comment on the heating, cooling, ventilation, and fire suppressant system that were woven into the building?
None of those. The original house, it was heated with a fireplace. And all of the additions, the original heat source was a wood burning stove. That was all the infrastructure that was there. All the electrical was done, and it appeared that that was something that was done in the 20th century. The electrical definitely that was had to be in the early 20th century, late 20th century when that was added. The heating, the furnace system was also added sometime well, definitely in the 20th century, but it may have been done in the 60s or 70s. So recent, relatively recent. And ductwork was run. Um, and so and had the previous owner had recently replaced the furnace. Oh no, take it back. The museum, when they took possession, had to replace the furnace. So it was a brand new furnace in the house, and we just changed the controls to also have some automated controls for the heating and cooling system. But yeah, the original house had no central heat. There's no insulation, and the level of renovation that we did not add any because we didn't open up the walls to that extent. We maintained all of the existing plaster walls, and so we did not go and add any insulation. The windows, uh, they're all the original single pane glass windows. We are installing storm windows over them to give us some a better thermal performance, and also to protect the artifacts from UV light, so the glass will be tinted.
Mm.
But that was, like I say, it was kind of a balance between trying to give us a nice museum experience and in a 200-year-old building that was never designed to be a museum.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Next question. What's the fire marshal's capacity set for the building?
50.
Hmm, okay,
49 and a half.
and a half. Hmm.
Oh, yeah, at the 50 occupancy, we were able to, I mean, only one exit is required when the occupancy is 50. And I think our number it's like just under 50, but we do have 2 means of egress, and we have the other barrier-free requirements. But that number being under 50, we weren't required to have a fire suppression system.
Mhm. Okay. Next question. Uh, what was the most challenging aspect of this rehabilitation project? Is it construction, permitting, or community?
Yes. All those. The the permitting process was a challenge because they said that they were willing to work with us, but we did have to do a lot of work with them to go through the plan review and go through inspections in terms of interpreting the building code for this application. So that was a challenge. Um, the community, the historic commission, they were very vocal in their requirements for the exterior of the building, and they were out there watching as we were doing the renovation. So they were engaged in what was going on. And then just the challenges of construction. As I say, it was um, very surgical in the things we wound up having to do in the building. We're trying to make modifications without changing the structure of the building, and also working around some of the defects that were present just from the time period it was built. I shouldn't say defects, but just the methods of use during construction. So that was a challenge, getting new and modern materials to work and connect. And say that was, and I say I got to give a hand to the contractor. He was able to get his skilled carpenters in there to make things work.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Next question. What kind of systems do they have in place to guard against vandalism? Or is there a security system, anything like that?
There was a security system. They do have a security system installed. Yeah, internet access was not a thing in 1824, but it was. We did have to. They do have a security system with surveillance monitoring of the doors and windows, and then there's motion sensors in there as well.
Mhm. Okay, next question. So it is a very effective way to tour the building. So is that something very costly to do? I think she's talking about the 3D touring.
And not really. It's a Matterport is a 360 camera, and we use it for scanning, and it gives us a. I've been using it more for recording existing conditions and the finished product for comparison. So and just as a byproduct, the way it records it, you get a walkthrough.
Mhm. Okay. Next question. Are there any interior changes that you would have wanted to make looking back on the property now it is completed?
No. I mean, the changes we made that I probably would have wanted to avoid, but opening those walls up, I was concerned about the structural changes it would make to the building. But the idea, we kept the house pretty much intact in its pretty close to its original form. So we really didn't make many really substantial changes to the building, which I was happy with.
Thank you. Next question. Um, so are there long-term plans for the museum, especially in terms of future expansion?
Yes, they would like to expand, potentially on the property. There is some area of behind the shed building that could potentially be expanded. So there's some potential, and possibly if there's the possibility of maybe doing a second building in the future.
Okay. Okay, next question. Do you know what prompted the move to this new property for the museum and what the plan was for the former property?
It was a house. It was owned by his name was David Bird. He was an architect, and he taught at Wayne County Community College. He taught building sciences there. and he had been renovating the house, and some of the repairs to the house were done by students, I think as part of class projects to restore and repair the house. Um, but they'd been there for a while. He did pass away a number of years ago, and excuse me, and his wife, I think that the estate, I do believe his wife has passed away as well, and they sold the house, and she had been a member of the museum, and so she's the one that made it available. So that's part of the reason why they got here, was because it was made available to them. That's
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Next question. How did the museum chose your firm for this project?
It was a RFP process, a request for proposal. Um, it was a short list, so we were invited to submit a proposal. And I think there were two or three other firms that submitted, and we were the ones that were selected.
Hey, thank you. And there's some comments in the chat said, this is a stunning rehabilitation and you did a fantastic job.
Thank
And
you.
there's also a comment from iPass, who's a member of the Pittsfield Township Historical Commission. And the comment is, I would like to add that the original parcel of the land was 480 acres owned by
Mm.
the Ralph Up, I'm sorry, Updike in 1825. And thank you for this excellent presentation of the historic district.
Thank you, Al. And as I said, the the Historic Commission was very engaged in this process. They were very helpful, like I say, in getting us some of the information we needed, things we didn't know about the history of the house.
Hey, okay, one more question came in. And do you know anything about the funding source for this project?
They received a grant and then donations.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, they are open for donation. I have a link to their website, so feel free to help them out.
Okay, awesome. I think we have answered all the questions, but if you think of anything later, feel free to let us know. And thank you, Kenneth, so much for this wonderful presentation showing us this project. And I want to say a thank you to everyone for being with us here today. And there is going to be a survey when this webinar ends, and please participate in the survey to help us improve our program. And but before I let all of you go, I would like to just quickly announce our next webinar. And let me share my screen. Okay, so next month is Archaeology Month, and we are very grateful that we have the author of the book, The Historical Archaeology of Michigan. We invited them to be our speakers, and it's scheduled for September 8th. I'm sorry, the date is wrong. It's scheduled for October 16th, a Thursday at 1 p.m. And if you would like to register, please go to our website. And thank you again, Kenneth, for your time, and hope to see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.